Welcome to Busted Speakers. I'm Kush,
And I'm Alex.
and today we're reviewing A Crow Looked at Me by Mount Eerie. So Mount Eerie is the pseudonym of a singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, Phil Elverum, and he's also known as being a part of the band The Microphones, which I've been a huge fan of forever. I have never listened to another Mount Eerie project besides this one. This is my first one, one of his solo albums. But I've listened to a lot of The Microphones, which I really enjoy. Uh,
Yeah.
this this album comes out of so I want to say midway through last year, Phil's wife Genevieve was diagnosed with cancer, and they had a Kickstarter, and he tried to raise money to get treatment, but unfortunately she did pass, and this album comes out of just his raw emotions of his wife's passing and how it impacted his life, and it's just heartbreaking to listen to. It is so heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's one of those albums that doesn't feel the same as a lot of other albums. It feels like a very, very different experience from a lot of other things ever released. Listening to something like this is a Skeleton Tree by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. And even that, it's more open to interpretation whether Nick Cave has these songs informed by the death of his son. Like, a lot of those songs were written before that tragedy happened. Entry One More Time with Feeling. It does feel like made Nick Cave amplify, but on this album, every song is so heavily informed by the death of his wife that I don't know. It's a little hard to take in. It feels like we're invading his privacy almost, but we're not because he released this album for everyone to hear. Like morbidly drawn into it because death, like he says, death is real. It's something that will affect us all at different points in our life with people we love
So
or
the
whatever. So
I don't want to say I know
say
how he feels, because I've never had to go through something so serious and so
right,
dramatic like this, and I don't want to say I know how he feels, because that's just being naive of me. I want to say
yes,
I don't like, maybe I just have more insight about how he feels because of how well he portrays that on this album, and how well he talks about
right,
things like that. But I could not, like, a lot of people are complaining that they don't understand this album because they don't they haven't gone through something so serious. But honestly, I don't think that you have to go through this to understand what he's talking about. Just
no,
even imagining, just the like, I there's certain points in this album when you can hear his voice start cracking, and his voice is just kind of like you can hear he's on the verge of crying, because like this is something
yeah,
so topical, and something so dear to him. I just, I don't think that you need to know what it's like to have someone die from cancer, someone lose someone, to understand the severity of this album. I personally have not lost someone very close to me, and I felt every pain he was feeling. Maybe when that does happen ultimately to me, I think I will understand it even more, but I don't think I was missing anything while listening to this album, because I can
yeah,
imagine what it's like.
yeah.
I don't want to say that, like, I mean, it's going to happen. He says death is real, and it's going to happen to all of us. And I think it's just so heartbreaking to listen to. Oh my gosh.
No, well, death is universal. It's prevalent in all forms of life. Just media, everything. It surrounds everything. It's like a dark, looming overtone to all of life because it is the day and night of existence in itself. I don't think, like you, I don't think you need to actually have had something as terrible as this happen to you to be able to connect with it, just because death is universal, like I say. And he just conveys the feelings of having to deal with this so vividly that you can kind of picture this. Like, describes Genevieve's life being so full of creativity and joy, and they were so happy together for their 13 years together on the song Saria Maria, that song's like talking about their time together, which just made that particular song so devastating because it described history together, and about that is just truly devastating. I have had some experience with death in my family, but nothing as. And I mean, writing notes for this, listening to it, I wasn't as caught up as I am talking now, but talking about it, so I'm amazed that he even held it together to record these songs. You know, some of these songs are truly stating in how morbid they are and even grief-ridden. I don't know. It kind of makes you feel like any feuds you have with people or petty grievances are like futile because, man.
So I just want to go over a couple tracks that, I mean, every track on here was just so. It feels wrong to call these good because it's coming out of someone's misery and someone's sorrow. But if we're gonna talk about unobjectively,
but it's even hard to call them like enjoyable or great because I mean it makes it sound like you're enjoying hearing about someone talk about their dead partner, which I don't enjoy hearing. But I enjoy hearing how he copes with it and how he portrays that grief. Like,
so
he has managed to deal with it in this way, I'd say.
I mean, so well, some of the things like just right off the bat, Real Death,
Wow.
that song just just on an unobjective, just not considering the circumstance, just as a song, it is so well composed. He has a gorgeous voice, acoustics are played gorgeously, but when you just dig into these lyrics, things like when he talks about he walks into the room expecting his wife to be there and she's not, and he's just having trouble imagining life without her, and then there's a story about getting the gift in the mail for his daughter.
Oh yeah, God.
And it says, and it's like something they ordered together, and they were supposed to surprise the daughter with it, and and her name was on the box. That is.
I don't think they ordered it together. I think she ordered it in secret.
So yeah, she ordered it in secret, but they're supposed to give it to her as a gift, and oh God.
It's like a gift for her when she'll be 5 or whenever she'll start going to school, so she'll have something from her mother when the daughter is older, because I don't know how old she is now, but definitely still very young. She's probably too young to even remember her mother, sadly. So, man, that is heartbreaking as well. And also, we'll have to get this out of the way. These songs, simple they are. Acoustic guitar, and man, sometimes when you're just listening to songs like these, you think you don't need a full band, really, in a lot of cases.
This is
especially folk. I mean, I know a lot of them have subtle percussion. I think even he has a few very subtle beats on a few of these songs towards the middle end portion. I'd have to say that's just raw emotions. Yeah. It just does feel real listening to this song.
It really just put perspective with what I thought about my own life. Like, I never thought an album could be so like I had said in the Mark Kozlik review. I started listening to Benji, which is another super depressing album, just very heartbreaking and stuff like that. Yeah. But this is just so real. This feels so right there. Like, you can just reach out and want to give him a hug or something like that. Like you want to be someone who can help him, but you feel so helpless sitting here listening to him just talk about this and how he copes with it.
Not even bittersweet, because there's nothing sweet about this, really.
There's nothing, and I think that has to do with the fact that he releases so, like, right after his wife's death. He never had a time. I still don't think he's really fully recovered yet, so he hasn't had a song talking about how he recovered or any good memories, because when he wrote these songs, they were all right after his wife's death. And
well, yeah,
he doesn't have
the thing I think about is that he probably shared everything with her. His real life partner, soulmate, lives together, and think about all the shared memories only he and her had. This is like part of him's ripped away. Really, I do feel like he feels like that, and I mean, he does seem like he is coping with it to some degree, but there are parts of this where I feel like if they didn't have a daughter together, I don't think he'd be okay. I really don't. I think he'd be... Oh, I don't know. I think he'd be severely more depressed. He'd have less to live for if he didn't have his daughter.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful for that, to give him something to live for. But he sounds desolate, depressed.
It's so heartbreaking. Like, so the song, well, I'm just gonna go through all the songs. I have a lot to talk about.
Seaweed, yeah.
Seaweed, he has diary entries like how they did in Sun Kil Moon's record. He says you have been dead for 11 days.
Yeah, I did think that as well. That's...
And they a lot of these songs do have time frames of like when he wrote them. So like you know how he like 11 days is not a lot of time to get over a death. It really isn't. And
no, he's not over it at this point at all.
And he has the sequence where he's talking about he brought a chair from home. I'm leaving it on the hill, facing west and north, and I poured your ashes on it. I guess so you can watch the sunset. But the truth is, I don't think of the dust as you. You are the sunset.
Oh man, that lyric. That is beautiful.
It's so poetic.
That's the thing. Cremation. I know it is their body decomposed as ashes or burned as ashes. That is them. But nobody thinks of that dust or the ashes as that person. There's a real disconnect between the person you loved and then this small powder. You, which is so true for everyone.
It's so
and it's saying she is the sunset is a really beautiful image. And also they talk about they were planning to build a remote home together, which I believe was on a Canadian island. It's just such a beautiful idea that they were going to live in this remote island together with their daughter. And now he probably doesn't have the energy, he doesn't have the dedication, he doesn't have the... Not that he doesn't want to, but he doesn't have the willpower to do it without her. It's sad, but the fact that he could still talk about her in such a beautiful way is very, very inspiring and good to me. Yeah.
So, like, then there's the song Ravens, which is just...
Oh my god. This song is... I remember listening to this song before the album, and it has exceptional musicianship and...
This song, when he hits those high notes, I am convinced he's gonna...
Yeah.
When he hits those high notes, I'm convinced he's just gonna start crying, because I don't know how he keeps himself so composed when talking about things like this. It's just so surprising.
I can't believe he holds it all together.
This song, I read on Bandcamp that this song was made in the same room where his wife had died.
Oh, and he says in other parts of the album, like, he finds it hard to go in there at night because he still thinks there's, like, the ghost of her or some part of her still there. And think about it, he said somewhere else that he was in that room with her when he died. Like, there's a song here which vividly talks about... There's one song on here that talks specifically about the moment she passes away. I don't know, we'll get to it, but about this at all in this much depth. It's very hard to deal with in a way, but it's so good to listen to in a way though, just because it's so well done, so beautifully a tribute to her. Ravens is probably the best song on here. I know it's hard to call it best or worst song. I'm definitely not going to call a song on here worst because it's a negative way of looking at it. But I have to say Ravens is... I have to say.
Yeah, I think the best music comes out of tragedy, honestly. And
it does, but it can't be instantly after the tragedy, because then you get focused on the tragedy. Apparently it's not very good for the creative process because you can't move on from it.
Yeah, like think about
it's good to write about, but still.
a good example is Sufjan Stevens' Carrie and Lowell.
I haven't heard that album yet. I know.
You have
I'm a
to.
fan of.
You have to
I'm a
listen to
fan of
it.
Sufjan. Got around to that.
But
In 2015, I wasn't as up to date with new music getting released.
oh yeah, this is just. I don't know. I don't know how. Ah.
It's hard to talk about
It
this
is. It
album.
really is. Because then you go on to songs like, I want to say, When I Take the Garbage at Night. That,
Oh,
like, something so menial as taking out the garbage. He. So he starts off. One of the
basic,
first.
but it makes it so meaningful in a way.
He starts off this album by saying, "It's cold. I'm cold because I won't close the window," as if he feels like his wife is still there and she has to leave through the window.
Yeah, I've heard about a lot of people talk about they have weird habits when someone dies like that. Like they'll still put out food. Like if they're setting the table, they'll still put out food for the deceased person, stuff like that. So I think there's an aspect to that there, but I do think it is him trying to make Genevieve, oh god, is left to leave. Yeah.
Yeah. But like that song, cause like it's just everyday tasks haunt him. Like he looks forward to taking out the garbage because he says like, looking at the night sky, he feels like he's in tune with her. But then when he hates going back into the house because he feels like he's leaving her. And it's just so unbearable that things like this affect him so greatly. And when you're listening on the sidelines, you just don't want to think about, like, you want to be there for him, you want to go and help him, but you know ultimately you can't do anything about it because it's something that he has to fight on his own, something he has to get over himself. And like, as a listener, we can't do anything. We just feel so helpless.
Yeah. And there's even a song on here that talks about the reactions people had.
Oh, that one was so heartbreaking.
Can relate to that. That's the one I related to most, just because not just around death, but was ill, or probably more people can relate to, because that can happen numerous times, sadly, during people's lives to one person.
Which song?
And people don't know how to act. It was My Chasm.
That song was just, when I was listening to it, when he says, do people even like care about my problems anymore and things like that, or are people annoyed by hearing me complain about my wife all the time, or the death of my wife? Like,
even though death is real, and probably his wife had loads of friends in the community because they lived in a small town in Washington State, I believe, and it was a very small, tight-knit community. Like, he even gave some of her clothes away to members of the community. So,
like,
you know,
when you think
about it,
when he says that he turns even a grocery store line into this just depressing sort of atmosphere, because when people see him, they know that this man lost his wife because of cancer, and he hates that feeling, the feeling of his attention on him, because then he can't get over it because people keep bringing it up, people keep talking about it, people keep asking about it, and he can't get over it. And it gets to the point where like he feels like,
oh man,
he feels people are being superficial about it, and they're saying they're only doing it because it's common courtesy instead of like actually showing concern.
But he does want to keep talking about her. He wants to keep the spirit of her alive because he loves her, and he doesn't want the memory or impact she had on people's lives to diminish. He wants that to live on. But I mean, this is something I'm sure most people who have felt about a death in their family, nervous of what to say and how to act and when it's okay or not to move on from it, because people, it's really, really, I don't know, it depends on the person. I'd have to say the song that messed with me the most, them did to certain degrees, but Toothbrush Trash and Swims. Oh my god, he talks specifically about the exact moment she dies in this song. And it's this song where things are not okay with me talking about her very last moments, like her last breaths, her last movements. He says he has that exact moment etched in his mind and how he finds it hard to go in that room she died in. Oh man, it's so surreal and morbid. I'm not saying it in a bad way, it's just they were talking to dies a few months later, counseling them.
He says, "We are all always so close to not existing at all, except in the confusion of our survived bys, grasping at their echoes." That line
Talks
killed
about
me.
desperately private and emotional moments like this. It's just why it's such a different album. I've never heard anyone else talk about something so private like this, so directly. Like, when you think about it, this album is like a dialogue to her. Says like it's been 11 days since you've died, and like it's been 2 months since you've died, and he talks. It's as if he's talking to her.
Yeah,
And on
I
most
think
of this, don't you think?
yeah, it is for sure. Another line in that song, "Swims." He goes, "Swimming is all she does," and
Yes,
like
because their daughter said, "Does mummy swim now?"
And well, I read somewhere that he released or he poured the ashes in the ocean, but that's not. I don't think
Yeah.
that's true because he also said he poured it on a chair in a previous
Well,
song.
maybe he kept some of it and spread them different places. I don't
Yeah,
know.
maybe. But anyway, so that's one interpretation. But I think he also means like she's swimming in heaven or something, or like as sort of an angelic being, sort of thing. But
Yeah.
just like, how would you explain the situation to your daughter who's no more than like 5-6 years old, at least to me. That's what
I
I
don't
think.
think even that. I think she's 2 or 3. But she's not at school yet, and she can talk, but it's like very. She was born not long ago. Like I don't think she was even born to talk about very much. Maybe the pregnancy on the last album, Sauna by Mount Eerie. Honestly, I honestly think she's like too young to even remember her mum when she grows up, which is really sad to me.
Yeah,
Stand deaf, obviously. No one does at that age, so it's really sad in that aspect as well.
but yeah, this album just hit me, and I don't know why because I haven't experienced that kind of thing. But maybe just the way he was describing it and the way I was picturing it, it just hit me, just so terribly.
Be
And
affected by death, like even TV shows. I know this is like definitely trivializing the experiences he had here, but you can get attached to characters, and if they die in a TV show, someone you care about, as is the case with both of us. I don't know about you, but I've had a few, but not anything too serious. Any more come, sadly, but just favorite characters dying off in TV shows and films, that can have an effect just because it's in a or it's someone we care about who's gone, even if we know that they're fictional. Playing on the viewers' emotions. These emotions is universal, I'd say. It's something we can all feel.
yeah, but I think the last song, "Crow," does have an alternate look into his life. Maybe the only one which does. I feel
Has
like
a slight positive outlook for the future. It's the only song on here that I think
even
is looking to a
resembles,
future
yeah.
with his daughter. He talks about it's very nice. They're having a nice walk together, and like a crow's following them. They believe this crow is Genevieve, and
It's he want.
sees the ravens as omens. So
It's so heartbreaking to hear him
it's a bit like
justify
that.
what's going on and try to explain to himself what's happening because even he is so confused about what's happening and he hasn't had the time to get over it and understand the situation fully, and hearing him go through this process of trying to understand and cope is just so heartbreaking.
It doesn't. There's great love talking about his daughter. I'm glad he has her at least. Something not commemorate. Like at least he got you know, there's something out of the relationship with her, something that will live on, and it it's a beautiful song and does give me hope. Album, because it is desolate. That's usually used as like a negative way, but it can be used in a technically, because it can be used just when it's so empty and bleak. But it does give me hope that Finns might be okay after all. They'll move on, even though they don't want to move on from her. So that song had a bit of hope to it, I'd say. Bleak, very sad.
Yeah, so I don't know. Throughout this album, I listened to it. I want to say two, and now I'm currently listening to a third time, as of last night.
It's not easy to listen to,
it
actually.
Isn't. It really isn't.
Even though it's music, I mean, it is a bit weird calling it that, but it is done really well. Phil Elverum is a great musician.
There was one post on RYM that summed it up really well. He gave it a 5. He gave it 5 stars, so in our 10 out of 10 on our scoring scale, and he said, "This is a beautiful album, but I never want to listen to it again."
It is like that.
And so
there's not going to be nobody on a Friday night saying, "Yeah, I'm going out to have a party. Let's put on A Crow Looked at Me." Yeah, no, that's not going to happen.
It isn't.
It is depressing. It depresses people because it's so sad, but it's so real. Death is real. It is real.
So I just kept putting myself in his shoes. So I was thinking about, like, if this happened to me and my girlfriend, and she's my everything, right? And I love her so much, and I was trying to imagine if this situation had happened to us and how I would deal with it. And honestly, I don't think I could. I think I would not be able to hold myself up the way he does, and especially because they've been married for, I want to say 12 years, something like that.
I don't know about married, but he says on the song Maria, whatever. I think that was like the place they met. I'm not too sure, but he talks about how they've only known each other for 13 years, but the moment they met each other, they loved each other. It really was love at first sight, and so they were basically as good as married when they first met. And
so I kept putting me in those shoes, and I don't think if something had happened to my girlfriend like that, I don't know how I would be able to handle it, because I don't think, honestly, I would be able to handle it as well as he did. And especially, we've only been together for like about a year now, and it's heartbreaking just to think about those kind of things, and this real, like, it doesn't feel real until it happens, and then you realize all of this is real, especially on the song Emptiness Part 2, where he even says, "I used to write about loss and death, and he literally says, like, it's all bullshit. I didn't know what I was talking about until now, and I can tell you how."
Was he talking about the microphone, some microphone stuff there, microphones materials, talking about that?
And he said, "We talked about death and loss, and it's all bullshit, and that's not how it really works. This is how it is. I'm telling you in this album how it really is."
Yeah, stuff like that's just so to the point and blatant and so direct. Oh man, and
but on the positive here, I think this album was his coping mechanism. I think, and especially in interviews and things I've read about him, he is doing better now, so that's always a good thing. And I think that this album helped him come to terms with what happened and just compile his feelings and put them somewhere into something productive and something so beautiful that we got to listen to. And I'm honestly honored to be able to be part as this intimate this intimate with him. It's just I don't know. I love this album and I want to listen to it more, but I just don't think I have the emotional stability to be able to do that.
Well, think about how many musicians have had their life partners taken away from them. Only last December, Tom York lost his wife. I know they divorced, but he still obviously really cared for her. December. That's only 4 months ago.
It's crazy.
It's one of my musical heroes, and I don't know. I'm going to be seeing him live in July, and I actually don't know how he's going to do live. I don't know if that's his first live performance in 2017, but I know he hasn't performed live this year yet. I really care about him, and I don't know if we'll get anything as direct as that from him. We did get some direct stuff concerning their divorce on the moon-shaped pool, but that might be easier to talk about, even though it's not easy to talk about, just because, you know, there's always the hope that they'd have gotten back together. But now there's such a finality with death. That's the end of death as well. Like, it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like it. Like, you can definitely put off the idea of death while you're living. Obviously, the album goes head on with this. Honestly, it is something else.
So,
It is.
Alex, what would you rate it?
Oh my god, man. That's not easy to do.
It really isn't.
I did rate it 5 stars, so here's the thing, I'm not as particular and precious about giving out 10 out of 10s. He doesn't give them out easy.
Yeah.
It's basically an all-time favourite, just about. Or at least one he really loves. So, I can't not give it a 10 out of 10. This is such a unique... Oh, I hate saying enjoyable, but it was a... And I hate saying satisfying. I did not enjoy or get any satisfaction out of hearing this, but I feel honoured, like you say, to be able to listen to this. It's such a... It is one of the best musical happenings. Not ever. I don't know, maybe. I don't know. Time will tell. But honestly, I've never experienced anything like this before. It's truly one of a kind. It's so visionary with what it discusses. It's so direct with his emotions that it's unbelievable, and I'm truly blessed to be able to have experienced this, and I'm, like you say, honoured. So I can't not give it 10 out of 10. That would be a disservice to the beautiful tributes to Genevieve.
So,
and I hope he'll be okay, and I hope he'll make albums. I don't know if he'll ever make an album without some effect this had on him again, but level of... I really hope so, if he can.
So for me, this album, it really resonated with me. It gave me a new perspective. I listened to this, I want to say, a few days back.
Right.
At the time of recording, like, I want to say like Wednesday or Thursday, and the weekend before, my girlfriend and I had a bit of an argument, and we were upset with each other. And after listening to this album, it made me realize how superficial it was, and I apologized right away. And I realized that there's so much more to this than having petty arguments and just keeping and holding grudges. It's not worth it. It's really not worth it.
Not worth it.
It gave me such a perspective that there is these things happen. These are real things, and you have got to get rid of the little things so you can enjoy the rest of the time you have together, because you know it's limited, and it's depressing as fuck, but it is, and you have to enjoy whatever time you have, and you can't just sit there and be upset about stupid things or be waste time like that. You
get hung up on the small things when the small things will not matter to anyone in 100 years' time.
Yeah, it's just absolutely, and even from like an absolutely technical perspective, ignoring the lyrics, his vocals are gorgeous. He sings with passion, lots of emotion, sings with just intense and raw, just power. The guitar playing is wonderful. The subtle other instrumentation is just fantastic. There is not one thing I don't like about this album, so I have to give it a 10 out of 10, especially the way it just resonated with me, the way that it impacted my life in the current day, even though I haven't had those problems.
Here's the thing.
This is an album that I can say is truly just life-changing sort of album.
It is like that, and even though this is both of our first 10 out of 10s on this channel, take that with a grain of salt. Like I say, hearing the beautiful tributes to her, we got some level of we got stuff out, we got something out of it. Like Kush said, it's life changing. But this is a 10 out of 10 each to give them out, but it's kind of we have to because it's so life changing. It's such a unique, unreal experience listening to this. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like a normal album. It feels different.
So for me, a 10 out of 10 just signifies that it's something that I could connect with, I could resonate with. Like, I have 21 Pilots' first album as a 10 out of 10, not because it's a perfect compositionist album, because there are tons of flaws in it, but it resonated with me and it stuck with me, and I think about that album, and there's something that just connected with me. And I think the same thing goes here. Despite this is actually just technically, I would consider flawless. I think there's not one thing I don't like about it. This album...
True.
This album...
A 10 out of 10 for me would have to be completely flawless, basically. This is, but it's not because it's highly enjoyable. It's because, like I've said millions of times, it's just something else.
This album really just changed the way I look at things, and just changed the way I'm going to be reacting to things, because it sounds like we're really hyping it up, but it really is just a piece of art that you feel in and out. Like every second of this, you feel something. And the one complaint I had, not about the album, just the way I listened to it. I should have bought Spotify Premium before this, because between the song Emptiness Part 2 and Toothbrush Trash, this advertisement came on for the Spotify Premium advertisement, and it ruined everything. And after I listened to the album, I bought Premium. I listened to it again without the advertisement, and it's just something else. It's something that you have to listen to understand. And I understand, like, these type of topics aren't for everyone. Some people can't handle these kind of things like the way he does, and are not as comfortable with listening to it, so it's not going to be as enjoyable, or not enjoyable, it's not going to be as pleasant, or there's no good word to explain this. It's not going to be something that they can find themselves listening to at all. So obviously this is a very polarizing album.
I don't think it is, actually. I mean, they'll have their detractors, but they are just the worst kind of people. I think most people, at least anyone who says anything against this, I mean, I can't imagine that. And if this type of person would say something against this, album,
it's unreal. But yeah, any last words, Alex?
Just might sound really sad and depressed, but we'll be okay. More crazy, funky ways next week, but we had to be respectful and calm with this one, because definitely. And I would say, even if you don't think you could handle this, like, this is a musical experience all music fans should try. It's like, I don't want it to say it's compulsory, but if there's any album released this year so far that is like compulsory listening for any music fan, I'd say it's this. Just like Black Star was last year, I'd say. Yeah. Like, some albums are like that for whatever reason this year.
But yeah, for me, just I hope that Phil is feeling better. I hope he's gotten some sort of closure about this kind of thing. I just really hope that he is going to feel better about this after writing this album, because honestly, it's just a lot to think about. It's a lot of thinking, and this album requires more than one listen, I think, to fully just take in everything.
Yeah, but even then, there's not that much hidden depth. He's so direct about it.
He is.
Like, you could know every word on this album without any... Like, there's no metaphors on here, really. I mean, other than the ones he obviously makes about her. But anyway, yes, we've talked about this at some length, extended length.
Yeah. Last thing is just, I would say, get well soon.
Phil, yeah.
It's a gorgeous album. I can't see a single flaw in it, and I actually did have one, but it's so
meaningless. I have not said it once on this review because it doesn't matter. That's how much it doesn't matter. I've not said it, so
Yeah.
basically flawless.
It's one hell of an album. It's everything about it is just really, really well. It's well composed. It's well sung.
Yeah.
The emotions are there.
Fitting tribute.
It is fitting tribute, and I would say just hang in there, Phil. I know it's probably.
I'm glad his daughter is his rock. Is his rock.
I think so. That's probably the best thing that you can have right now.
Yeah.
Well, if that's it, then thanks for tuning to Busted Speakers. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe. Check out some of our other videos, and check us out on social media.